Hi, Jason.
Hey, Mandy.
How are you doing?
Good.
Everybody's just getting logged in, so.
Sure. See some names I recognize on the screen.
Yeah, this is amazing. Happy to see everybody.
Oh.
All right. All right, I'm ready to go, Jason. So whenever you think, we can give everybody a few minutes here.
Yeah, maybe we give them a couple of minutes. We're on Lauren's time after all.
Yeah, for sure.
4 or 5 minutes late is on time.
And if you see anything in the chat or things that I'm missing as I advance the slides, let me know, and Ty can do that as well.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll keep an eye on it.
I can't see that as good when I have this up on my screen.
Yeah, sure. I might change the view on my end just to exit full screen and make sure that I can see everything. We've got a few folks still trickling in. Maybe we could just start with our introductions and then people will join us. And if they have questions, if folks join and have questions about something we covered, we can go. And I see you're recording it too. Are you going to make that available to folks if they missed the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so welcome everyone to the Social and Environmental Justice Cohort informational session. My name is Mandy Netzel, and I am the Employer and Relations Lead here in the Career Center, and working with Professor Rozick to get the program up and running and gain partners that are offering the internship sites this year. So I will pass it on then to Professor Rozick for introductions. I'm sure most of you know him already.
I recognize I was just going through and jotting down some names from the list. I recognize most of you, but not all of you. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. I'm Jason Rozick from the Government and Environmental Studies Department, plus the new International Relations major and the Global Studies major. So I've had some of you in class, but not all of you. And I'm really jazzed that we're able to do this this cohort for a second year. I think there's something really powerful about going out into the world and doing this sort of social and environmental justice work. I think it's powerful for you. I think it's powerful for communities. I think there's some great professional development pieces of this here, as well as the academic program. And I'm so enthusiastic about the program that we piloted last summer and the updates that we've made, and all of the pieces come together for me into something just really unique and innovative and incredible. So I'm really happy to be part of it. And I'm going to turn it over to Ty, who's coming on board.
Thanks, Jason. I'm Ty Collins. I'm the Assistant Director in the Career Center for 3 of our career communities: Government Law, International Affairs, Communication, Journalism, Written Arts, and also the Education and Community Engagement career communities. And should you decide to pursue any of these really neat summer opportunities, you'll be working with me to make sure your application material is good to go. So I look forward to working with you on that. And I have worked with many of you already, so it's good to see some familiar names and faces.
All right, so we will just start with kind of an overview and expectations of the program, and then we will get into really the details of how to apply and what's available to apply to. So let's start with overview and expectations. I'll turn that over to you, Jason.
Perfect. So the short version is that there's essentially 5 different elements that are all coming together here. 5 different sort of let's call them 5 different angles that are innovative. And so they all kind of fit together on this slide. One is that these internship opportunities are they're focused on a particular issue area, right? And so these are all connected to the broad concepts of social and environmental justice. Second, that's not the only thing that connects them. They're also geographically connected. So these are focused in Milwaukee and Appleton, the bulk of which are in Milwaukee. The third piece of the connection is that we're really going to be building this as a cohort model, meaning that you and 10, 11, 12 other people are going to be doing internships, often in the same place, in the same general space of focus, but you'll be connecting with each other as well. And so I'm going to say a little bit more about the academic components on the next slide, I think, but there will be right, community building and cohort building in the spring before these start, weekly over the course of the summer, and then again in the fall when you return. So you're really going to be connecting with a group of other Lawrence students who are going to be working often in the same city, in the same space of social and environmental justice. That academic component that I'll say a little bit more about is the fourth way that this is innovative. And then the fifth one that's really valuable to me personally is that we've been able to fundraise. We have generous alumni and donors and folks in the development office who've worked really hard to make sure that this program is accessible because it comes with a stipend. And so I've said this to some of you before, but I was a first generation student. An unpaid internship, as great or as transformative as that might have been for me when I was 19, 20 years old, right, an unpaid internship was off the table, was not feasible, was not possible for me. I was a first generation student. I grew up on a farm. I needed to work during the summer. I needed to have an income. And so being able to match these opportunities with a stipend, in some cases, essentially converting unpaid internships into paid internships, is so important when it comes to accessibility and equity. So bring all of those pieces together, and what we have is this cohort model that I think is really, really innovative. And so starting in the spring, what this would look like for you is applying for an internship, finding the right organization and applying for an internship. And I'll let Mandy and Ty talk a little bit more about that. But then starting in the spring, registering for a 2-unit tutorial where we have essentially orientation and community building. So we'll meet about 4 times at in the second half of the spring term to talk about conceptually, what do we mean by social and environmental justice? What does it mean to go out in the world and do this as work rather than study it as an academic concept? And then over the summer, once your internships get started, we'll be meeting weekly to reflect on what sort of challenges you've run into, where you're having some successes, as well as weekly discussion questions like how did diversity and inclusion and justice show up in the orientation for your internship, or did it not? Is social justice a value that exists on your organization's website somewhere, or do you see it present in the work of your colleagues and your coworkers? So we'll meet. I'm hoping that Omicron and COVID allow us to have at least some of those meetings in person. Work out the travel logistics. Some of them will be on Zoom, maybe some of them are hybrid, but you can plan on having those discussions for about an hour a week over the course of the summer. So again, we're sticking with that cohort model. We're having these discussions. We're building in this bridge. I'm a big proponent of the idea that the real transformative part of these high impact experiences is in reflecting on them, having them incredible, right? Having them is central, obviously, but reflecting on them, this is where the real growth comes. And so in pursuit of that, in the fall, that we'll again be doing a 2-unit tutorial together, where we'll be doing a structured reflective activity that culminates in a poster, one of these large format posters. You may have seen them in the campus center last fall. If you happen to be down on the second floor of Briggs Hall, I'm working with the the university carpenter right now to build me a hallway display for some of the posters that students put together from the first cohort. So if you find yourself down in my neighborhood here in Briggs Hall, come and check out the posters that students did based on their experiences last summer. So what we really have is essentially bookends, right? Spring term orientation, fall term reflection, over the summer, in the middle, in between those bookends, you're having this high impact internship experience along with weekly discussions and reflections. And you know, the financial part of it that makes it more accessible for everyone. So I'm gosh, I feel like I'm only skimming the surface while simultaneously talking too long. So let me stop there and turn it over to Mandy and Ty to talk more about the logistics from their end. And I love that part of it. Just the academic and the curricular and the co-curricular connection. I think we ought to do more of things like this. It's been really nice to have that integration between the academic side of the house and the co-curricular side of the house. I think it's turned this into a really wonderful program. So let me turn it over to Mandy and Ty, and we can talk more about any of these pieces during the discussion too. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jason. And I just want to say too that we will definitely leave time at the end for questions because I'm sure there are going to be a number. The slideshow, this will not take the full hour. So we'll just kind of skim the surface and then open it up to the group if that sounds okay. But all of the points that Professor Rozick made are absolutely true. The pilot year was fantastic, and it's even better this year with deeper employer partners, better positions, more organized application periods. So we're really excited about this next piece. In addition to all of the academic pieces, the preparation in spring term, the weekly cohort meetings, and the reflection in fall, you're also going to have access through the Career Center for professional questions. So last summer we had some questions that came up, while students were working at their sites about how to, ask for better feedback from their supervisor, and we're going to be there throughout the summer to answer those questions as well. The employer partners in this are also given the expectation that they will set learning goals with the student who they are working with, so that you'll have a very clear idea of what the expectations are of your supervisor, and also be able to have a conversation with them about what you want to get out of the experience. So we have some tools that we can share with them to help them do that with you. And then, you'll have Professor Rozick obviously all summer, and then also us here in the Career Center to support. So whatever you're experiencing as part of this cohort, we want you to tell us and keep us in the loop, because this is really designed to, be a fulfilling and paid experience for you. Ty, would you have anything to add there? Otherwise,
it took me a minute to find the mute button. No, I think you've covered a lot there in terms of how the internship be supported in real time over the course of summer and beyond as well.
All right, so then I'm going to leave it with you to talk about the application. Oh, sorry, no, summer partners first. I'll do this. So we have the partners listed here, and we will get into the application process and what positions are open in just a little bit. But just as an overview, we have opportunities and employer partners almost spanning each of our career communities. So really, whatever area of career interest that you have, there's probably a position in here that would suit you. So I would encourage you, I'm not going to take the time to do this now. If you have particular questions in the question and answer section, we can go into specific job descriptions, but I would really encourage you to log into Handshake and view them all. Some of the partners that we have are 16th Street Community Health, which is, your job would be to do an intake assessment, figuring out the social determinants of health in a clinical setting. So if you're pre-med or interested in that track, amazing position for you. We have World Relief, who is working on locally, working with refugees and helping get them situated. Groundworks, maybe Jason, I'll let you pop in a little bit more about their positions.
Yeah, for sure. Groundwork is such an interesting organization. We had their executive director on campus a couple of years ago as part of our environmental justice symposium. She's moved to another organization now, but Groundwork Milwaukee is this great. They started as an urban agriculture organization, and I think it says 2, but I think we may actually end up with 3. Right, 3 students placed with Groundwork Milwaukee.
Yeah.
One working on urban agriculture, really using green space with neighborhood organizations to grow food, and then at least I think 2 interns working on their neighborhood climate resiliency project, which they just got some funding to start. So I'm really excited about Groundwork Milwaukee.
Me too. Yep. And True School is archiving environmental justice projects from the last 6 years. And they're this really cool organization that's doing environmental justice work through art and music. So if we have any conservatory students on the call or anyone who's just interested in that path, they're amazing opportunity. And also Strive 365, it does programming to help with childhood trauma through athletic programming. So it's a really diverse set of partners. And I would highly encourage you to go through, even though it'll take a little bit of time, it'll be definitely worth your while to dive into the various job descriptions that are on Handshake and kind of see what would fit for you.
Can I just jump in and say one of my big takeaways from the summer discussions last year were how interesting the connections were between the students. It really just spoke to the value of the cohort and the discussion model that we had students in at least 3 different organizations working on housing and emergency shelter, and so they were able to talk with each other about the work that they were doing, really connect in that way because they were doing different pieces of it, connecting over their frustrations with the work and with the systems that they were embedded into, right? They were doing this emergency shelter work and turns out frustrated with the same county level policies. And then one of our interns from last year was doing work with Legal Action Wisconsin on the eviction moratorium. And so she was working on housing and emergency housing at a different level. And it was so interesting to see those conversations about housing and shelter and policies at the state level, at the county level, at the city level, at the very local neighborhood level. And for me, it just really spoke to the power of connecting and cohort building and having these conversations over the summer. Those students would have had incredible opportunities by themselves if they never spoke to each other. But I think the connection between them and those conversations gave all of them a much deeper understanding of the work that they were doing and how it fit into a broader context.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And I think what's really cool is that a lot of these organizations know about each other, but they may not. So I think the students are actually going to be very valuable in figuring out the ways in which the different agencies can collaborate and bringing that to their supervisors. So I think there's just all kinds of opportunity for learning and awareness here, which I think it's really cool. All right, so I am going to pass on to Ty then to talk about how to apply.
Okay, so just some details on, like Mandy said, how you can apply. It's there on the screen. Any student who's first year, sophomore, junior, or returning senior, as long as you are going to be enrolled in fall term, coming back to Lawrence next year, you're eligible to be in this program. If you're graduating this year, you are not. What you're going to want to do if you decide to go forward with this is look at the jobs on Handshake. They're all posted there, and read specifically the qualifications required. Simply being a Lawrence student in a class isn't going to be the only requirements. Some of the jobs will have requirements in terms of the skills they may want you to have or specific kind of work background that you might want to have. Now, they do realize that everyone here is college students. They're not going to be looking for a ton of work experience because that's just not realistic, but do carefully read through the job descriptions and make sure that the job that you're applying for is something that you feel you're qualified to do. Do you want to hit the next slide, Mandy, please? Oh, I put some links in there, but they're gone. Okay, anyway, deadline to apply is just about a month away, February 20th at 11:59 p.m. You can apply for as many positions as you are qualified for and interested in. So there are several positions. There's 11 out there now. I think a couple more are coming. So you can apply for as many as you want. There's no limit as to how many you apply for. Here's an important part. You do have to meet with someone in our office to have your resume reviewed before you apply to any of these organizations. And I'll walk you through that process in a second. The reason we're doing that is we're Lawrence students, you're Lawrence students. We have a reputation. We're smart students. We're good students. We have high standards. So we want to be sure that the application material we're putting forth to these organizations reflect the high standards that Lawrence students have. So one way to do that is to meet with someone in the Career Center to have that application material looked at before you apply. So keep that in mind as you consider that February 20th deadline. Also keep in mind that usually it's about a week out in terms of getting on one of our calendars to meet in the Career Center. So if you decide to make an appointment on February 18th, that's going to be too late. So I would say, you're sure you're going to apply, get on Handshake in early February and make that appointment, or sooner, and make that appointment so you have plenty of time to get into the office. We can work on your application materials and then get you applied by the deadline on February 20th. So I am going to put a couple of links in the chat if that's okay, Mandy. Hang on a second here. Most of you would know how to get to Handshake, but if not, here's a link you may want to bookmark. That's going to be the link just generally to make the appointment. Once you get to this page, and many of you are familiar with this, this is where you then would choose the career community you're part of. If you scroll down to the bottom of all those career communities, there's a new button that says Social and Environmental Justice Cohort Internship. That's the option you want to select for this. So don't choose your career community in this case. Scroll down to the bottom, choose the Social and Environmental Justice Cohort Internship. And once you do that, you'll have the option for a resume review, a practice interview, or just general questions about this program. You're not required to do a practice interview, but you're certainly encouraged to do so. It's always good to get a mock interview in before a real interview, just in case there's some things we can work on and make your presentation stronger. So once you choose your resume review type or your appointment type resume review, you'll have the standard pick a date and time in which one of us is available. Your options will be to meet with me or one of our two career peer educators, Marissa Lake and Amy Gruen. So we have 3 staff members available to help you with these resume reviews, as well as potentially a mock interview if you choose to do so. The more prepared you are in terms of applying for these positions, obviously, the stronger your chances are of getting one. One more link, and this may be coming up, but just because I like putting links in chat boxes. Here is the page that has more information on this program. There are also links to Handshake on this page as well, plus descriptions of how the program works. So any questions about that whole application process that I can answer before I turn it back over? Claire.
Is there a separate application for funding specifically for the cohort, or if we're accepted to one of these internships, are we in the cohort at that point?
There would not be a separate application for funding. That's part of applying to positions in this cohort. Good question.
Yeah, just to add on to that really quickly. And we'll talk about this in the selection processes, which is coming up next, but if you are selected for an internship, then we will ask you to just fill out some funding paperwork, but you only have to do that if you're selected. So don't get that confused with any other funding cycle or any other communication that's going out about our general funding right now. That's separate. So don't worry about that until you're actually selected for an internship, and we will reach out to you to let you know what to do. Good. Should we go on? Okay. All right, so Ty had mentioned meeting with the Career Center and possibly doing a practice interview, and here's why. We're not, as Lawrence, selecting you to work with these site partners. Essentially, what you will do is upload your application into Handshake. We'll turn those over to the partners, and then they will reach out to you to interview. So it is really like interviewing for a real internship or a real job. That will be a piece of the process. And we do that really because we want you to feel comfortable who you're working with. Sometimes in an interview situation, you may not feel like it's the best fit, and we don't want to stand in the way of that. We want the employers to feel comfortable with you, and you also to feel comfortable with the employers. So in between the close of that deadline and March 4th here, please be watching your email and your phones. I know this is difficult and there's a lot of communication always, but it's going to be really important for you to watch for any outreach from the employer partners that you've applied to, because it will be on the student to then set up their own, or to respond, set up an interview time with the employer. After all of the interviews are done, the employer partner will then reach back out to you and let you know that they're offering you the position, similar to a real world situation. And then you will also have to let them know that you accept that position. So Ty had mentioned before that you may choose to apply to 3 different positions. That could essentially mean that you get 2 or 3 offers, and then you'll be in a position where you have to decide which one you want to work with. So I would say definitely keep that process moving along, because if you decide not to work for a particular employer partner, they'll want to move on to the next candidate, which could essentially be your peers. Does that all make sense? So yeah, after the employer has made the student a formal offer, and then the students let me know that you've been accepted, then you're in the cohort, and then we'll get the funding process rolling and things like that. So happy to answer any questions there. Okay, so if you're accepted, sorry.
Mandy, I was just going to add one small piece on the timing, is that we've set this up so that this all happens before spring term registration ends, so that you won't miss the window to register for that 2-unit tutorial spring term. This is a place where we ran into a little trouble with our pilot project last summer, and so we bumped up the timeline a little bit. So you will know, you'll know that you have an internship, who that internship is with, and that you're part of the cohort before spring term registration, so that you can register for that 2-unit piece.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jason. And the other reason it's bumped up a little bit earlier is because of housing. So if you are not from Milwaukee, we do have connections to housing through UW Milwaukee or through Luther College, if you need a place. Otherwise, you can work with Ty to secure a different option. And that's part of what the stipend can pay for, is your living situation over the summer. But a lot of those application periods close a little bit earlier too. And not to mention, we just want you to feel good about, hey, I have my summer plans in place. You can tell your parents, look at me, I'm like so excited. I already have everything lined up, and then you can just take spring term to focus on your courses. So it really is, and participating in Professor Brozick's preparation pieces. So it really does make a lot of sense to do this and wrap it up, prior to the end of winter term. All right, so if all those pieces fall in line and you are offered a position and accept and you are into the cohort, you will receive a $5,000 stipend for your work. And that covers wages for the summer and also living expenses. The first part of the stipend will be issued upon written confirmation of the internship acceptance and filling out the funding application piece that we need. And that will help you get it set up for down payments on housing, initial costs, things like that. And then the second half will be issued midsummer after completion of a midterm summer survey. And the reason for this is we just want to make sure that you're continuing on in your internship, that you're participating in the cohort and things like that. So you receive your second half of the stipend in the second half of the summer. I think I haven't worked out the exact details, but that should be like July, I think early mid-July. So, all right, any questions on that front? Okay. I'm going to stop my screen share so that we can answer any questions because I'm assuming there might be a few. And Anders.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I take classes in the cons, so I already take 22 credits a term. Does that mean if I do this that I would have to pay an overload fee since I'd be taking 24 credits in spring and fall terms?
I can tackle that one. So we've definitely had folks in that position, and I would say that doing the poster and having that reflection piece is more important than the credits. I want to make sure that the credits are available so that it shows up in your transcript. I think that you should be getting transcript credit for the academic work that you do. But if it makes more sense for you to do it for 1 unit, if it makes more sense for you to do it for 0 units, if it makes more sense for you to do it at the beginning of winter term to register for the credits winter term, I've worked with students in all of those situations. I actually even have two summer interns from the first cohort who are doing their posters right now because they were both studying abroad in the fall. So if you're already going to be in Buenos Aires in the fall, don't feel like this opportunity is off the table. I'm working with two students who were not on campus in the fall, who are doing their posters this term. Does that answer it, Anders?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Maybe Claire and then Nick. Claire, I saw your human meat hand, and then Nick's digital hand.
Thank you, Professor Brozick. I love how disturbing that is. So in spring term, assuming that the pandemic doesn't make that impossible, I'm really excited about the possibility of this orientation class. If it doesn't line up with my language requirements, is there another way I could complete the requirement to disqualify me from participating in the cohort?
Yeah, so this will be a new one because last year our orientation was not credited and was really just one quick Q&A meeting, and this is a place where we really wanted to try to beef things up. That said, I have a general sense of what the orientation will look like, but not the specific components yet. So I wouldn't be able to point to anything and say you will specifically be missing this, and if you miss that, it's just not possible. So I'm inclined to say I'm happy to work with you and be flexible and find a way find a way to make that work. And I have to say, Claire, you cut out right when you said what the overlap was in the spring. Was it that you were going to be at the London Center, or that you were overloading, or what was the spring? What was the spring conflict for you?
I'll be in Senegal.
In Senegal. Okay. So in that case, what it might mean is, yeah, I'd have to think about it a little more. I wouldn't immediately rule out the program. If this is the right fit for you, we'll find a way to make the orientation work. Nick.
So since you mentioned that you had a couple of students last year who did this, who were planning to study abroad this following fall term, would that still be possible for this year? Like if we have plans to study abroad next fall, would it still be able to do this and delay that like 2-credit poster and whatnot until the winter term?
Yeah, I think so. I just wrote your recommendation for Shanghai earlier today. I wouldn't want you to miss out on either one of these opportunities, whether it's study abroad or the social and environmental justice internships. I think they're both powerful, they're both important, they're both really going to enrich your time at Lawrence. And if what that means is essentially doing the poster session twice, I'm game for it. Let's do it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Sorry, Mandy, I didn't mean to jump in and start calling names. It's
Oh my gosh,
it's
no.
habit. It's like
please, no.
it's like professional habit taking over now.
No, I kind of like it. No, I think that's great. No, feel free.
What other questions do folks have? Yeah, Samantha.
Is it on us to find like where to live? Or does that happen with you guys?
That's a good question. I'm going to let Mandy say a little bit more about housing, because I think it could be a little bit of both.
So the question was, will you find a place to live on your own, or can you repeat that? I didn't quite catch the first part of it.
Yeah, I was wondering what the process for housing accommodations is going to be.
Yeah, so it kind of depends. We have different options, and to be honest, I have to pull those up again from last year, but UW Milwaukee does provide housing. Wisconsin Luther also provides campus housing throughout the summer. So we have contacts to kind of work through that process. I know a few students were doing the same experience and decided to, I think we had some students who are roommates, or that is a possibility. So I guess a better answer to this question is it kind of depends on your situation. If you're doing one of the Appleton sites, you could certainly live here on campus. So I guess what my recommendation would be is to, when you're working on your application process with Ty, kind of work through that process, or, kind of thinking through that.
Yeah, there's no specific housing with this program, but if you've never looked for a place to live before, which presumably you haven't, I can at least help you do that, having moved several times myself. So I can at least kind of help you understand how that process goes, finding places to live.
Yeah, there are some subletting opportunities and a lot of different options. We just don't have everybody from this cohort is going to live in the same place. If that's helpful.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Is there anything else?
Yeah, what other questions are out there? Yeah, Nick.
Is there a specific recommendation about how many of these programs you should apply for, or is it really just the workload you're able to take on and what positions best fit your interests and abilities?
Yeah, I'm probably not the right one to answer that, but I would say a little bit of both of those. Find a program that's a valuable, good fit for you. I'm thinking of one of the students last year, and this is not one of our partners this year, but he worked for an environmental education organization. They had land, and part of his responsibility over the summer was to organize a summer music series. And he was a a dual degree student, and at one point, the musician that was playing the Sunday show backed out at the very last minute, and he had to step in and perform. And that's probably not the best fit for every student to have to step in on an hour's notice and perform music, but it was a great fit for him. So not a universal expectation to be able to play music, but I do think the expectation for time commitment is going to be roughly the same for all of them. I say roughly, that some of them may be maybe 30 hours a week for 10 weeks, and some of them maybe 40 hours a week for 8 weeks, right? It's going to depend on the organization, but they're so different, right? I was just jotting things down. We've got housing, law, refugees, education, arts, music, food, water, athletics. Really think about what would be good for your professional development, what fits your community interests, and think about those organizations.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to kick off, and then I'm definitely going to ask Ty to jump in here for additional perspective. But, the positions are very different. So I think when I said go in and read the job descriptions for each organization, I think you'll very clearly see, like, yeah, that is a fit for me, or that's not something I'd ever want to do, or I for sure am not qualified to do that, or absolutely. And if, there are 2 or 3 that you think you could do and you would be interested in, I would say definitely apply to those 2 or 3, because, again, there will be other applicants to that particular position, so you're not guaranteed that one. So I guess if I was thinking about it, it'd be like, well, I'll maybe apply an interview for 2 or 3, and kind of see where I land. Ty, what would you have to add there?
Was the question, how many of these positions should I apply for?
Yeah, like how many should I?
Oh, yeah, I've been getting that question a lot lately in meetings with how many jobs should I apply for? There's no magic number. Apply for what you're qualified for. In this case, I'd much rather, if there's 1 or 2 jobs that you're really qualified for and are confident you can do and you're interested in and you would enjoy it, apply for those 1 or 2. I'd much rather see you put the effort into 1 or 2 that you're really good at than try to apply for 10 just for the sake of applying 10, because odds are you're not going to get 8 of those. Just really pick out the ones that are your best bets, and we'll focus on them. And if it's just 2, then it's just 2. That's still a better strategy than going for a numbers game.
Yep. Like if you're pre-med, definitely apply for the 16th Street Community Health position. But if you're interested in urban agriculture, apply for groundworks. You're going to see those clear connections once you kind of dive into the job descriptions, I think.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I apologize, is it Lewis? You have your hand raised? Lewis?
Yeah, it's Lois.
Thank you.
I know that some students did their internship in partnership with the Center for Urban Teaching in Milwaukee. Is that still a connection that we have, or would that be a connection that I would have to make on my own?
Yeah, so I can definitely make that connection for you, and I will reach out to you separately, Lewis. That is a paid position, which is why it's not really part of the cohort for this year. But I can certainly connect you to the recruiter. I know they are looking for people.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Mandy, in that particular case, it's a paid position, but we essentially made up the difference between the salary they offered and the stipend for the rest of the cohort.
Yep. Yeah, it was just difficult because their time frame is a little bit shorter and it's paid. So it didn't really fit the parameters of what we were looking for in an employer partner just for this cohort. But we still definitely have a relationship with them, and we had students who had a good experience there. So I'd be happy to connect you.
Can I raise my hand with a question?
Yes.
It's related to that. Are we still, I probably should have checked beforehand. Are we still letting folks, if they have they see an opportunity through some other channel and it seems like it would fit, are we still open to that idea? I know there were at least a couple of internships last summer that students just had connections to, where they found out through their network.
Yeah, so I guess my answer to that would be potentially, but we have a lot of positions already. So I would say that would probably be a plan B, like if something falls through.
Okay, that sounds great. AJ.
Thanks. I was just wondering, do any of the internships require like a recommendation?
I don't think that is explicitly stated. Originally, most are resume cover letter. They may ask for that later, but I don't think right off, and no, not like a faculty recommendation, I don't think, if that's what you're referring to. They might ask for references later, but.
And okay.
These are great questions. What else you got?
It's pretty detailed, so these are really great questions and I'm happy to answer any others. And I'm going to put my email in the chat so that you can email me. And Ty, is yours in there? Ty's in there too. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, we certainly don't need to stay until 1:30, but I do want to allow time just in case anybody has anything extra. You know, we're here if you need questions as you go along, just let us know. All right. Ty or Professor Brozick, anything else to add before we close?
No, I just want to say that I'm really jazzed about this. I hope I get the chance
Me
to
too.
work with some of you this spring and over the summer and into the fall. I love this program. I think we're building something just really innovative and cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a
doing
really
such
good
good work.
summer. So yeah, we'll look forward to seeing your applications. All right, everyone, have a good weekend. Folks, stay warm.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks.
Hey, Ty. Are you there? Did
Yeah.
you get the recording?
I hit recording, yep.
Yay!
I'm gonna hit stop recording, so we